There was one man who was an exemplary nurse, and he tended to use this non-physical touch. I'm not sure if it was a gender, if it was because of his gender, or if it was just his particular approach, but it was very powerful, and he would not necessarily lay his hands on the person to do, he did to do the nursing tasks, but in terms of comforting or consoling, he didn't necessarily put his arm around or hold a hand, but he would sort of encircle them with sort of the warmth of his being. And he would use what I call soft eyes to sort of really connect with the person and it was kind of a non-physical touch. It was a strong eye contact, a sort of encircling with the warmth of his hand behind someone's back without actually touching that person. And it was a very powerful form of touch. So I did write about it because I think, as you say, it sounds like a contradiction, but it was certainly touching that person emotionally, and comforting that person, but it wasn't actually putting his hands on the person's physical body. So it was an interesting one to observe. And another form that I thought was really powerful, I called trigger touch. And I'm sure you've seen this touch happen in your life. It's a kind of touch that it sort of triggers an outpouring of emotion. For example, there was a woman who was very concerned about her husband. She had provided all of his care. Basically, she was by his bed day and night. And I was really worried about her. And I saw the nurse approach her one day as she was pacing the hall waiting for his supper tray to arrive. And the nurse just simply touched the wife's elbow and just said something like, I see, it seems to me that you're sitting on the edge of tears, can you share them? And that little touch was like a trigger. And this woman, this wife, had never cried, had never expressed any emotion, but that touch just set off this pouring out of emotion that just was really what she needed at that moment. And it was all triggered by that little tiny touch that the nurse had just so skillfully provided. So I think that trigger touch was a really interesting type of touch that I found the nurses use quite often.